For 31 years in the business trenches, I have been hiring people. For 31 years of my life as a business owner, entrepreneur, professional hockey coach, amateur hockey coach, and team owner in multiple industries, I have hired and fired lots and lots of people. And I find it very interesting to see now in 2023 how one of the excuses that's used by ordinary and average business owners, well, I can't find any great people. I can't find anybody who wants to work anymore. I can't find anybody who's any good to work in my business. And this excuse is actually a form of surrender, because it's next to impossible to grow your business without outstanding people. When I 5X'd my dad's insurance agency, I was only able to triple it, then 4X it, then 5X it by hiring consistently, attracting and hiring, and in some cases firing, great people. I grew that workforce from 3 people to 5 people to 7 people, then up to 9 and 10 people. And then as we got into the big leagues, 300 plus phone calls a day, writing over, $1 million in new business every 6 months. I went from 10 people to 13 people to 17 people. Then we broke the 20-person employee mark. And then at the peak of our game, when I sold the agency 5 years ago, we had 23 people. I had 23 people, plus I had 2 outside employees. I had a personal executive assistant, and I had a marketing director. So in total, 25 people plus myself, a payroll well over the $1 million mark. So so when a person says, well, I can't find anybody to work in 2023, you're really surrendering, and it's going to be next to impossible to scale your business. So what's the solution? Well, what I'm going to share in today's video is my insider secrets. I haven't really talked a lot about these outside of my masterminds and in my newsletters, but I have a method. I have a badass method for attracting and keeping outstanding employees. And I'm going to tell you right now, your number one greatest challenge right now, your number one greatest challenge in 2023, if you want to scale your business, if you want to grow your business, is finding and attracting and keeping outstanding employees. And it's also your biggest headache. It's going to be your most expensive part of your business. You hire somebody, you get them trained, and they're gone. You hire somebody, you pay to attract them, you put ads in the online and offline, you get a good person, you train them, you invest time in them, you invest knowledge in them, and they're gone. It's your most expensive investment in your business, hiring great people. So in today's video, I hope that I can really help you save some money and some time and lots of headaches. So this week I'm reading the Wim Hof method. And Wim Hof is the gentleman from the Netherlands, the Iceman. He's known as the Iceman. And if you don't know who he is, you can certainly search for him, the Iceman Method. And I'm really enjoying this book. It's a book that was recommended to me. So I read one book per week. 52 books a year is the goal. I read a few more than that when I take into account some reading benders that I go on when I'm on vacations or here in Naples. But I'm really enjoying the Wim Hof method. And it's, you know, the Iceman. The book is about, he's the godfather of cold exposure, cold showers. He has several of the cold exposure world records, right? This guy is a psychopath when it comes to cold exposure. Like he's ran above the Arctic Circle in nothing but shorts and running shoes. He's swam under icebergs. He's done all these different things. So I'm really enjoying the book, and I do recommend it. I don't recommend many books because most books aren't worth recommending, but this is one that is I'm really enjoying reading. But he talks about his experience. He talks about his experience as a young man from the age of 12 to 17. And this is a guy who's been very successful, not just as an author and a speaker, but overall. And it's interesting to listen to him is Paperboy. He delivered papers from age 12 to 17. The old paper routes. If there were newspapers being delivered in our neighborhood, I can tell you right now that my daughter, who's 10 years old, would be delivering daily newspapers on her bicycle. I don't know what it is about old school delivering newspapers, but when you check the history of some of the most elite entrepreneurs, elite people, men and women that change the world, and peak performers in their background as a child, as a teenager, delivering newspapers. They had a newspaper delivery job where they had to get up every morning, 7 days a week, carry this massive, heavy bag of newspapers, and it didn't matter what the weather was, they had to deliver these newspapers. So Wim talks about how this was a game changer for him in terms of routine, mental toughness, and discipline. And the story he tells is from age 12 to 17, 5 years, not one single day off, 5 straight years, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year, he would deliver newspapers with his brother. So his alarm would go off. He's only 12 years old. He's only 14 years old. He was only 16 years old. Every single day, his alarm would go off at 3:30 a.m. 3:30 a.m. And he would fall out of his bed and immediately into the push-up position. Immediately into the push-up position on the floor and do 50 push-ups. He would do 50 push-ups to start his day. Then he'd get up, he'd splash some water on his face, he'd brush his teeth, and then he would head out to the kitchen. And in the kitchen, his dad was always preparing breakfast. So there's parenting 101 right there. Don't tell your kids to do things that you're not willing to do. When my daughter is passing out flyers to promote her dog walking business, I'm shoulder to shoulder with her, just like my mom and dad were. When she wants to do something entrepreneurial, I make her do the work, but I'm shoulder to shoulder with her. So here's a father that's up at 3:30 in the morning, 7 days a week for 5 years straight with his 2 boys, and they're out the door at 4 a.m. In half an hour, he would do his push-ups, he would brush his teeth, he would have his breakfast, and they'd grab this massive sack of newspapers. He said it was incredible how heavy they were, especially the weekend editions. And then him and his brother would get on their bicycles with this massive sack on their shoulder, and they would deliver papers for the next 2 hours. And he said where they lived in the Netherlands, he said it's all hilly. It's all massive up and down terrain. And he said his leg strength, when he first started doing this, he could barely do it. He had to pull the bike over, he had to walk, he couldn't bike, he couldn't get up some of the hills. And he said by doing this day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, not only did he build his self-discipline, mental calluses, toughness, grit, but he also built his physical body. I mean, he's only aged 12 to 17. He says his leg strength, he went from not being able to even ride basically with this sack of newspapers to being able to do the entire thing, up and down the hills, up and down the hills. So he was building his physical endurance as well. But just think about that when it comes to hiring people. Their background as a child and as a teenager is everything. Trust me, I've hired hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. I have recruited thousands of elite hockey players. And I'm going to tell you one thing, the number one thing is the background they had as a very young child and as a teenager. So here's a guy who delivered papers from age 12 to 15 or 12 to 17, 5 straight years at 3:30 in the morning, 7 days a week in some of the harshest winters you could imagine. They're in the Netherlands, it's cold, it's rainy, it's snowing, it's sleeting, it's like Canada. Doesn't matter, the papers need to be delivered. So he learned stick-to-itness. He learned grit. He learned, and he built mental calluses where I was, I'm not sure you can do it. You can do it. You can get up that hill. You can do these 2 hours. And it's like the old saying, 75% of the time we're not going to want to get out of bed and walk and read and write. But damn it, get out of bed. You're not ruled by your emotions. You need to be ruled, okay, by your intellect. It's like, you know what? When I say jump, you fucking well jump. That's mental toughness. Not lying in bed with your feelings. Well, I don't feel like putting on my shoes. I don't feel like getting up. I don't feel like drinking water. I don't feel like walking in the cold. That's the difference between winners and losers. Is it's not about your feelings. You're not ruled by your feelings. So he learned this mental, I call it mental calluses, where he was just like, that alarm goes off at 3:30, up into the push-up position, then splash some water on your face, brush your teeth, breakfast, and out the door by 4. So what kind of an employee do you think a guy like that would make? Do you think there's any problem, with a guy like that being on time for work? Do you think there's any problem with distractions like anti-social media? Do you think there's any problems with attitude? Do you think a person like that is potentially coachable? Do you think a person like that is going to be a clock puncher? You can just go down and down the list. The bottom line is background matters more than anything. When you're attracting people into your business and essentially into your world, where have they been? What's their mindset? What victories have they had? What challenges have they overcome? What was their childhood like? What was their adolescent years like? So that's number one. I have had a huge win. Some of my very best people have had paper routes, newspaper routes when they were kids. And as I said, you're not going to run into that as much, but it's amazing. It's about the work ethic. It's not about the newspaper route. It's about the 7-day-a-week, 365-day commitment to extreme hard work. That is what you're looking for in a potential team member. Another area that I look at before is agricultural background are farming. We in Canada, we live in an area where there's lots of farming. So some of my very best employees ever were kids that grew up on a farm. Children that knew what it was like to get up at 5 a.m. every morning. Look at that sunrise behind me. God is good, God is great. I have another day. I've been blessed with another day, one more day to do what I want with it, to serve as many people as I can, to make a difference, to be a husband, a father, a leader, to bring value. Look at that sunrise. That's my reward for getting my ass out of bed this morning at 6 o'clock. So the kids that worked on farms, they know what it's like to get up at 5 a.m. and do 2 hours of chores before school. Before school. They're not on their fucking Game Boys or getting their asses dragged out of bed because they were on their phone all night. No, they're up at 5 a.m. milking the cows, cleaning out the horse stalls before school. And then a person with a farming background understands that when they get off the school bus at 3 o'clock, then it's right back into the barn for another couple hours of chores. Shoveling shit, cleaning out stalls, milking cows, feeding horses, all of that stuff. And then in the summer, they know what it's like to work in extreme heat, haying, harvesting, the whole 9 yards. They understand work ethic at an entirely different level. So what kind of a person is that for your team and for your company? Do you think that person has any problem getting to work for 8:30 in the morning? Do you think a person like that is going to be missing because they have the sniffles? You think a person like that is going to be taking mental health days? I don't think so. That's a person who understands the power of extreme hard work. That's a person with mental calluses. That's a winner, not a loser. So I have had a huge track record of success hiring people with a farming background. Keep that in mind. Thirdly is military background. I don't care if they served in the military or mom and dad were in the military, but like I was telling a friend the other day, the kids that my daughter runs into that are so-called army brats, in other words, they've lived in Canada, they lived in the United States, they've lived in Europe, they've been all over the map. They've been to 7 schools, they've had 10 teachers, they've lived in 7 towns in 5 countries. They are the most adapted children today. And my daughter has some friends that are army brats, military brats, and they are the best. Good morning. The best children, the best kids. We love having them around. Again, they got grit, they got toughness, they know what it's like to be able to adjust to moving. They understand what it's like to walk into a classroom time after time that you don't know anybody. They have stick-to-itness. They build a life, they move on. They just have toughness and mental grit. So one of my greatest hires ever was the great Sandra Challenger. And Sandra was my COO of McLean Insurance. She babysat my 23 employees. And Sandra's background, she had a business background as a COO. When you hire a CEO, you hire somebody who has a successful track record of being a COO. That's it. We're not looking for any pioneers first through the door here. We're looking for people that have already won doing what you want them to do. So Sandra had a track record of being a championship COO in business. So I hired her because winners are winners, losers are losers. But the thing about Sandra that made her elite, that made her different than other COOs, was she had a decade of experience in the military personally, not as an army brat, personally. And I knew she was an effective leader when I would hear some of the employees call her the little general behind her back. That's, I don't know, I call that affection. I call that affection and respect for real leadership. We used to call my mom, when we were children, the Iron Lady behind her back, in reference to the great Margaret Thatcher. Those aren't stabs in the back, those are pats on the back. So they used to call Sandra the little general. And she was my COO for 7, 8, maybe 9 years. I don't know. Winning is winning. But she had a military background where she worked in the military as a young adult. And it showed in everything she stood for. It showed in her time management. It showed in her mental makeup. It showed in her attitude. It showed in her work ethic. Man, it was unfair. She had stacked the deck. She had an unfair advantage over other people because of her military background. So that was number 3. I've had not just Sandra, I've also hired former soldiers, former military. And man, oh man, it's just a different level of work ethic, a different level of winning. A 4th thing that I always look for is a sports background, a history like a Marc-Andre of playing sports at an elite level. Mark played for me for 4 years. Our team was a championship culture. He was able to not just survive playing for me, but also to thrive. He ended up going from the 4th line, a marginal player, to a leader, to a team captain in his final year. And then he won a Barclay Cup championship as an assistant coach. He did our video for us. But winners aren't losers, and losers aren't winners. And like, there's a guy who learned what extreme hard work is through sports. Like the toughest, most grueling 2-hour practices you could ever imagine. Military grade practices. He knew what it was to have the demands on him of winning a championship. It was win or else, right? Losing was not accepted. Good morning. So he came from a culture where, and he talks about this, where he was 16, 17, 18 years old. He was like, is this what winning looks like? I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen standards like this. I've never seen perfection like this. I've never seen demands for excellence like this. So I always look for an elite level of background. If somebody applies to work for me, I'm like, and I see on there that they played Division I college sports, and they played for a Nick Saban, or they played for a Jim Harbaugh, or they played for a Mike Krzyzewski, or they played for a Bobby Knight, or they played women's basketball for, you just go on the list. And then you're like, okay, there's a person who lived 5 a.m., training. There's a person who lived student athlete lifestyle where it was all about sports and good grades. There's a person that knows how hard winning is. There's a person who knows how difficult it is to separate yourself. There's a person who knows what discipline is all about, and they have the championship work ethic. So anybody that has an high-level athletic, they've played for great coaches, they know the difference between winning and losing, that's a massive, massive thing to recruit. The final thing I look for is the reason that I hired Leanne Brennan as my badass bitch in charge executive assistant, is Leanne was an entrepreneur. And even at the time, Leanne never looked at herself as an entrepreneur. She said, I own a commercial and personal cleaning company. She used to clean our massive office. She used to clean our home. But when I see somebody that builds their own company and they do it without, like my dad, without any mentors, without any role models, without any examples around them, And she was like my dad. She used the Uncle Earl Nightingale, the godfather of personal development. She used his example, which was, there are no examples. Good morning. There are no examples. Uncle Earl said, whenever you don't have an example or you don't have a role model for how to do something, just look around at what everybody else is doing, do the exact opposite, and you'll never ever make another mistake as long as you live. I love that quote. And that's Leanne's business life. She didn't have parents that were entrepreneurs. She didn't have anybody motivating her or inspiring her or encouraging her. She just wanted to be her own boss. She knew she was a hell of a cleaner. She knew she had a championship work ethic. She knew that she had the mental discipline and toughness to do it. And she went ahead and she did it. And she's built Meticulous Cleaning. It's a commercial and personal. It's a small business, like all our businesses. And that's the grit and that's the toughness that led to me considering having her work in my world. I can't have a poodle working for me. I can't have somebody who's got thin skin working for me. I need somebody who understands, as my executive assistant, how tough business is. I can't have some virtue signaling goofball calling in sick every day, or the kids have a sore throat, or are you kidding me? As my executive assistant, the work needs to be done. It doesn't matter if it's Sunday afternoon. It doesn't matter if it's Tuesday morning. It doesn't matter. So she has that grit, that relentlessness that comes from her being an entrepreneur. She knows what it's like to do the books. She knows what it's like to not have any money to pay your staff. She knows what it's like to be doing well in business and not doing well in business. She knows the trials, the tribulations. You know what she knows? She knows how hard it is to find great people. She knows what it's like to pay taxes. She knows the bureaucracy, the red tape. She knows all of it. She's been through the China virus with her business. She's been through all the ups and downs. That stuff is invaluable. That's mental calluses that's invaluable when you do recruit that person. And all of these things I'm talking about, notice the word is recruit and attract. You're never going to find anybody like this on Indeed. You're not going to find somebody like this on monster.com or whatever those other goofy sites are. You need to recruit a person with a military background. You need to recruit a person with an elite athletic background. You need to attract a person who was an entrepreneur. You need to attract a person who, had that family work ethic of the paper route when they were 12 years old. And that's another thing. In Leanne's case, she has experience to this day running her own business. But here's the thing. I also have had huge success hiring men and women who have grown up in a family business, in a small family business. Whether it's a store, whether it's a flooring company, maybe mom and dad owned a restaurant. Oh my God. That is one of the best places to recruit people, is the hospitality industry. What do you think about hospitality industry? Number one, you get paid a low wage. The hours are brutal, weekends and nights, and you get paid commission, which is tips. So if you're a bartender and you're a good one, it's through tips and late hours and dealing with drunks. Same thing for a great waiter or waitress. Are you kidding me? You're working on commission. You know what it's like to work weekends and nights. You know what it's like to sell on your feet. You know what it's like to live by commission. You know how difficult it is, to work to 3 in the morning. That's one of the areas also that I've had great success in, is hiring people who have been in the hospitality industry. Show me a great bartender, show me a great waitress, a great waiter, and there you have your next great salesperson. Or Down the road, your next great COO, depends. But anybody that has experience growing up in a family business, like I grew up in the back of a general store, the formative years of my life, age 2 to age 5. I watched my dad work 14 hours a day. We lived in the back of the store. I watched him work every day but Christmas from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Do you think that has an effect on a young person? Seeing your father work 14 hours a day and love it? Seeing your mom raise the family in the back of the store? We were as blue collar as you could get. You know, my dad would get up, he'd shower, and he'd walk out, grab a cup of coffee, and he would be standing behind the counter in the general store within 20 minutes. And then he would lock the front door at 9 o'clock at night, and he'd come in and he'd sit down and talk to my mom for a while, and then he'd fall asleep in his chair. So you don't think those are formative times in a young person's age, that they see their father with extreme championship work ethic, their mom with extreme championship work ethic? Damn right. So anybody and everybody that's growing up in a family business, especially anybody that's worked in the hospitality industry, whether it was the family business or not, anybody that's worked successfully in the hospitality industry is a badass. They know what it's like to get to work. They know what it's like to have to work till 3 o'clock in the morning. They know what it's like to have to deal with people that are drinking too much. So when they started working for me in the 9 to 5 insurance agency, when they started working in an air-conditioned office, the farmers, the bartenders, the people that had worked in real tough businesses before, they thought it was a piece of cake because it was. So that is my recommendation for hiring great people. Number one, you got to recruit them. Number one, you got to attract them. And it's then who you attract and looking into that background. Whether, and it's all the same, whether it's paper routes or whether it's farming, milking cows, or the military. It's all based in that championship work ethic, that championship mental toughness, championship mental calluses, championship attitude and coachability. It's all right there in those industries. So I've got my $155 million marketing swipe file on sale this week and this week only. I used to sell this thing for $5,000, and then I used to sell it from the stage for $2,000. It's on sale this week for $9.97. This is all of my marketing that I used over the last 19 years to sell $155 million and counting. It's my barbershop marketing, my hockey team marketing, my insurance agency marketing. It's stuff in there from my real estate investments, you name it. If I've used it to sell $155 million of products and services over the last 2 decades, it's in there. My newsletters, my physical flyers, my postcards, my upsells, my cross-sells, my referral programs, my free pizza gift certificates, my $100 Christmas Burns Jewelers gift cards, you name it, TV ads, radio ads, phone scripts, employee, what do you call those, reward programs. But you know what's in the swipe file? Is my famous, infamous Help Wanted program. In there is all the ads that I used online and offline. The ads I used on Facebook, the ads I used in the local newspaper, the ads I used in magazines, the ads I put in my newsletter each month, the ads we put on our walls in the lobby to constantly hire great people when they said there were no great people. I've used these ads in the barbershop business, I've used them in the consulting business, I've used them in the insurance business, and they're the opposite of what everybody else does. So they're part of the swipe file. and also the questions that you ask, the interview questions. In there are my the funnel. I have a help wanted funnel. You know how you have a funnel for your niche? You might have a funnel for a certain type of business owner you want to attract. Well, I always have a funnel first and foremost for my employees. I'm constantly recruiting. I'm like Nick Saban. I never stop recruiting. Even when I'm not looking for a person, I'm looking for the next person. Admittedly, I'm looking for the next Leanne. I'm looking for the next Marc-Andre. I'm looking for the next, that I have to, because you never know what happens with people. Lives change. I was always looking for the next Sandra Challenger. I'm always looking for the next top salesperson. And that way you always have people in the bullpen that you can call on. If somebody gets sick or somebody retires or somebody moves away or somebody goes lame, you have the bullpen. So filling up your bullpen is possible when you use these ads in your newsletter, on your social media, everywhere and anywhere, in your emails. And these are in my swipe file. Those alone are going to save you tens of thousands of dollars. And to get a copy of the swipe file, it's only on this week. And that discount is only for this week, $9.97. It's a physical product. Leanne FedEx it to you. It's a massive, ugly box of all my marketing. All my marketing, including my help wanted. So go to badassswipefile.com. That's badassswipefile.com, and you can grab a copy of it there. Leanne will ship it to you within a week, and you can dig out those help wanted ads, scripts. It even shows you the landing pages. Like I built a video funnel for it, where a person who's applying has to do these 3 things. So they would see the ad on Facebook, or they'd see the ad on LinkedIn, or they'd see the ad in the local newspaper, or they'd see the ad in our monthly newsletter or at our company, and it would drive them to a website like a receptionisthelpwanted.com as an example. And then they'd go there and they'd watch a quick video of me telling them a little bit about the job, and then they'd read this long site of all the things we're looking for, and most importantly, what we're not looking for. And then, if they wanted to still apply, this method gets rid of 95% of the tire kickers. It gets rid of 90% of the people that you don't want anything to do with, time vampires. And then you're left with the 5%. And the 5% are the people then that can apply. And there's 3 things they had to do. They had to write me a letter, a personal letter. They had to send me 6 references. They had to send me their resume, physical, all by FedEx. And then they had to send it to a specific address, not the office. And the reason I was doing all this stuff was to test whether they're a tomato can or not. Can they think? Can they read? And can they write? And can they follow direction? Because those things that I just talked about are all about following direction and focus. If they're a punch-drunk tomato can, well, they'll send it to the wrong address. They won't include the letter I asked them to write about themselves. They'll send 3 references, not 6, and they'll send it by regular mail to the office. Well, right off the bat, that goes in the trash. That's a person who doesn't listen, can't focus, they're mentally ill, and they're punch-drunk, so I don't want anything to do with them. So then the 1% that end up following all the directions, showing me they're coachable, showing me they can listen, showing me that they can follow direction, showing me that they pay attention, those resumes, and we'll get maybe 1 or 2 of those a week, those are the ones that go in the A pile. And I show you exactly how to do that in the swipe file. And that to me is one of the most important parts. I know there's the flyers in there that sold, $50 million in insurance and made us the #1 barbershop. That stuff's really cool, but you need employees to do that stuff. Like everybody said, oh, there's no barbers, and you'll never find insurance agents, and you'll never find sales guys. And this is the funnel, and these are the ads that I use to make that happen. I couldn't have scaled anything in any industry without great people. So that's what the swipe file, that's one of the things in the swipe file that's on sale this week. It'll really help you. 100% 12-month guarantee. If you pay the $9.97, you invest in your company. anytime in the next year, if you're not happy, just email Leanne and say, I'm not happy with this purchase, and we'll refund your payment of $9.97 immediately. And you don't need to send it back. If I haven't delivered like I promised, I don't want you to have to bother to send something back, pack it up, none of that stuff. You can keep it and I'll refund your money that day. So you can't get a better, no risk, year-long warranty than that. My 12-month money back guarantee. Pay the $9.97, get the swipe file, go through it, use it in your business, all of it for a year, for 12 months, use it. See, test it, try it. And if it doesn't work, you get every penny back and you can keep it. Doesn't get any better than that. Okay, that's it for today. Hiring great people, it's your #1 expense, it's your #1 headache, and it's your #1 challenge in business today. You gotta get this right. You gotta get this right. And I take a lot of pride in being one of the few guys that's been a massive recruiter. I just see myself as a football coach. I see myself as a baseball coach. I see myself as Steve Jobs recruiting hundreds of people. I'm always on the lookout for great people. Recruiting. That system inside the swipe file will help you do the exact same thing, simply and easily. It's not I'm not curing cancer here, and I'm not a neurosurgeon like Marc-Andre's sister and like that. I'm just an ordinary guy with great systems and a passion for winning. 2 words that changed my life, badassswipefile.com. The link is below. Badass Swipe File below. If you don't like to use websites like I don't, email Leanne below. Leanne at badassmillionaire.com, and she'll also take your payment and send the swipe file to you. That's it. 2 words that changed my life, 2 words that'll change your life. Be relentless.